In 1994, South Africa inspired the world as millions of people queued patiently to vote in the country's first democratic elections. It was the end of apartheid, the forced division of people by the color of their skin. "We, the people of South Africa," said the Freedom Charter of the African National Congress, "declare that our country belongs to everyone, and that all the people shall share in the wealth. The land shall be shared among those who work it. There shall be houses, security, and the right to work." This is Robben Island off Cape Town, where Nelson Mandela and thousands of political prisoners were banished. It seems the right place to ask why those freedoms, for which so many fought and died, are still missing in South Africa. Yes, apartheid based on race is outlawed now, but the system always went far deeper than that. The cruelty and injustice were underwritten by an economic apartheid, which regarded people as no more than cheap, expendable labor. It was backed by great business corporations in South Africa, Britain, the rest of Europe and the United States. And it was this apartheid, based on money and profit, that allowed a small minority to control most of the land, most of the industrial wealth, and most of the economic power. Today, the same system is called, without a trace of irony, the free market. This film will ask why apartheid continues by other means. I was banned by the apartheid government 30 years ago, and this is my first trip back. Robben Island was my starting point, and my guide was a former ANC resistance fighter, Ahmed Kathrada, known as Kathy, who spent 18 years in this prison.
This here was the president's cell.
So this was Nelson Mandela's cell?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. How long did he spend in there?
Now, he did not move much. So I should say that of the 18 years that he spent on Robben Island, the bulk of those years were here. What was in the cell when we first came was a sisal mat and 3 blankets. And after a while, they gave us the felt mat as well.
How many years did you have just that?
We slept on the ground for about 14 of the 18 years that we spent on Robben Island. And I was the only non-African among the 7 of us here. So when we had to change into prison clothes, I was given the regulation shirt, jersey, canvas jacket, long trousers, socks, shoes. My colleagues were given short trousers. But there's a rationale behind why they were given short trousers. In South Africa, and unfortunately even now, Africans are still regarded as children. You find terminology in our homes, in white homes in particular. You talk of your garden boy, your kitchen girl. Regardless of age, boys wear short trousers. So Mandela had to wear short trousers. Unfortunately, our white compatriots have not been generous enough to recognize that when President Mandela talks of reconciliation and forgiveness, they have forgotten or refused to see what it is he has forgiven.
This was the crime of apartheid. Deliberately and systematically, people were dispossessed of their land and their rights and the essentials of life. Tens of thousands of children died when their families were wrenched apart. Today, behind the modern face of democracy, 87% of all African children suffer poor health. A quarter of children under the age of 6 suffer chronic malnutrition. Yet time and again, the African people found the spirit to rise up. In 1976, in Soweto, hundreds of schoolchildren confronted white police who opened fire on them. It was the children's action and courage that led to international sanctions. By the 1980s, a general uprising had begun. The apartheid regime began to panic. White privilege that amounted to one of the highest standards of living on earth was clearly at risk. F.W. de Klerk, a so-called moderate, became president and in 1990 made this historic announcement.
The prohibition of the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, the South African Communist Party and a number of subsidiary organizations is being rescinded.
De Klerk's strategy was to seize the initiative and co-opt the ANC leadership. The white establishment and its backers in Washington and London wanted above all to maintain power over the economy and to keep South Africa safe for international capital, regardless of the color of its government. Behind these very public meetings, the ANC met secretly with the regime. A special relationship developed in which accommodating the demands of the old apartheid order began to take precedence over the spirit of the Freedom Charter. Nelson Mandela had promised his people that an ANC government would take over apartheid's great collaborators, the mining companies and the financial institutions. He said, "It is inconceivable that we will ever change this fundamental policy." But this promise was already broken as the ANC agreed to what it called historic compromises.
De Klerk saw the writing on the wall, and he knew the economy was on the point of collapse. So he was negotiating for weakness as well. But if you'd pressed him for another year or two, he'd have been totally weak. There'd be nothing he could do.
The ANC has always maintained that had it not made these compromises, there would have been a bloodbath.
No, there were very serious compromises. There might have been, I don't think necessarily a bloodbath. A lot of people might have died. But a lot of people have died since 1994 anyway. And probably more have died since then. Not only through the violence, which is a tip of the iceberg of people dying, but people have continued to die in vast numbers from malnutrition and preventable illness.
Out of these deals with the regime grew the ANC's policy of reconciliation. But reconciliation for whom? Who would make the sacrifices?